Really a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to sort of present with you and for you see how Vulcan Cyber ourselves are tackling um, in in general how we're tackling the exposure risk at scale and the things that we're doing. I'll then hopefully be able to deep dive into a broader demo session to sort of show you what we're doing and how we're doing it. But let's first just discuss um, cyber risk and exposure management at scale. We'll discuss enterprise, sort of the numbers that we have, sort of the difference between the fragmented and holistic approaches, the benefits that we see, and then, like I said, we'll end off with a demo so that you guys can sort of we'll deep dive a little bit into our system and get a preview into how we're doing things here at Vulcan Cyber. So sort of some of the data that we have that we've collected from different enterprise customers. Most of our customers are dealing with more than 20 tools and data sources. As some of our speakers have touched on already, we're talking about 10,000 new vulnerabilities a day, upwards, over 100,000 critical vulnerabilities, and thousands of remediation owners. And really dealing with massive scale that we've seen a lot of our customers dealing with manually before they come and sort of decide that we need Vulcan to help us manage this mass. And so with more risk types, more vulnerability feeds, more stakeholders and teams involved, you get something that kind of looks like today's current state with the fragmented approach. Different attack surface scanners, SaaS, DAS, IoT, code, and they're all sort of scanning different risk types and finding different risk types that are then sort of delivered, managed manually, a lot of times in different Excel files, and then tickets are generated manually. A lot of data, a lot of bits and pieces that don't speak to each other. And then really a lot of manual labor that happens in sending these things out and the resolutions that need to happen. What we've sort of seen and have built a solution for is the more holistic exposure risk management. Say enough with all of the fragmented pieces, and as we heard from Origami Risk with Noi, that there needs to be one centralized management hub where all our different tools can sort of speak to each other and be normalized into one place so that we know what we're looking at. So that there's efficient mitigation processes that can be put in place and cross-functional collaboration. And for the stakeholders, the CISOs, who are not, in the weeds necessarily, but need the comprehensive visibility that, comes with overseeing everything that's going on. And the result is more accurate prioritization and a faster MITRE, right? The time to remediation of the median time to remediation ends up being much, much faster. And so that's really sort of the results of what we've seen, the benefits that we sort of have outlined as sort of our guiding light in building the product and developing the product further. And so if we deep dive into sort of the demo part of this, and so I can sort of show you how we go about it in Vulcan. I will share now the Vulcan side. As you can all see, here we have the Vulcan platform. And in this platform, we're here on the connectors page, and this is where all your data comes in. As you can see in this environment, we have a variety of different connectors bringing in data of all different variety and different types. You have the option to add and choose anything new that you like. Whatever your organization uses, upwards of 80, 90 different choices and types. Bring it in on a click. And all that data gets normalized in our really fancy and nice asset hub for Vulcan. And here you can see that you have so many different asset types all in one place. What we've done here is basically say, okay, I have all these different scanners bringing in all this different data. how do I now manage it where I not only normalize the data so that it speaks to each other, but that I remove duplicates, I get rid of a lot of the noise, and I can prioritize based on what's actually affecting me the most. And so here you'll see, for example, if I want to just take a look at sort of this data or code project data, I can filter out for those specific subsets. If I want to look at my host data, or even some of my cloud resources, again, I can filter out for all those things. You could see here all the data that's being pulled in. And then again, parameters and sort of metrics for SLA status, my risk level breakdown, where I'm kind of holding. And the cool thing here that you can see is we've brought in the ability to deduplicate. And you see how things come from different sources. And once we've normalized the data, all of this data and these different data points, you could see that we now are able to combine them and aggregate them, so that all these different scanners that may tell you, all the different things you need to do, whereas it could have been 3 or 4 different items, have now become one. And so you sort of understand where you need to go, and where you need to put your focus. What's really cool is that you're then able to deep dive and go deeper and say, okay, so now I've decided that this is critical. I've put my risk script in place and all the prioritization, and I know that this has a vulnerability that has to be fixed. And hey, I want to be able to take action and do something with it. And that's really where Vulcan's added value comes, with not just aggregating, consolidating the data and normalizing the data. I then can actually make remediation happen faster, quicker, in a more streamlined process that I can track through campaigns, and even through automation. So either I can do it manually by opening a campaign, or I can say, hey, I want to build an automation so that all my critical vulnerabilities that come in from Tenable, I want to automatically create JIRA tickets, so that my end engineers already know that that's something that they have to deal with. Whether that's through email, we support JIRA, email, ServiceNow, any of the above, all these different integrations for our ticketing systems, including Azure, and some other fun features with our automation that maybe in another demo session I'll deep dive further into with you. Sort of the last piece of the puzzle for us. Obviously, there's a lot to the Vulcan platform, and I can spend hours talking about it, but the other piece that's really important is really the analytics. And it was also touched on previously when we were discussing with Origami. But you could see that there's so many out-of-the-box reports that really take the data that already exists and does the slicing and dicing for you, so that you don't need to now spend hours taking different data points, cutting it, making presentations and slides to present. So if you have, the CISO executive report, or even a remediation report, like if we went into this one, for example, you can sort of see in a report like this that for me as a manager who's trying to track the remediation process of my engineers, when I've sent out those JIRA tickets to see how they're doing, I can see, first of all, that I'm covering with the campaigns that I've started all of my vulnerabilities, how many are getting remediated. And then again, the time to remediation and percentage of change from the previous periods to see that I'm actually improving or not improving. And these are all things that, whether you're on the level of manager and sort of want to see how your employees are performing, or need to report upward, or if you're on the level of CISO. And these things are really important for you to see and be able to sort of make decisions when it comes to business. And I'll just say also, like, if what's important to you, you've decided that SLA tracking is, important to you. I think Origami Risk also mentioned this as like a big one that they use. It's a big use case for a lot of our enterprise customers. They set the SLA and then they're able here to track, how many of their assets are compliant with the SLA, how many are exceeding right now. And then again, track things over time. That's like, I think the biggest thing with the analytics is to be able to see improvement and really, where your organization is doing well and where it's suffering. And again, all these things come out of the box with Vulcan. And the last really cool, nifty thing is you can also create your own report. So here, for example, what was really important was for, let's say, for example, if I created my own with my own widgets, what was important for me to see was sort of my instance risks, my levels over time, to see that, the risk levels are sort of going here, becoming more critical, but here I can see that the highest risk mask over different vulnerabilities, and the cumulative remediation. So again, you can slice and dice how you want, and sort of build your own widgets and your own reports, as you see. Your focus is more on, sort of the AppSec, or, you want to see how your assets over time are coming in, and which sources are really bringing you the information that you need. That's really analytics and our reporting mechanism. Again, this is sort of a very brief, streamlined overview on how exactly Vulcan deals with this issue at scale. But I invite you all to demo the products for yourselves, and become partners in building a better product for all of us moving forward.
Aviva, just before you leave, there are a few questions in the comments tab. I don't believe we have time to answer all of them, but there was a question about integration capabilities of the platform and about risk scoring. If you have a minute and you briefly can answer some of them, that would be great.
Sure.
I can also read it to you if you.
Yeah, if you want to read me the questions, that would be excellent.
Okay. So one was how the integration is supported if we have a tool that is not listed in the integration tools or connectors list.
Okay, excellent. So first of all, we have what we call sort of our Vulcan report. It's sort of a catch-all generic. You can upload any of your data into our system, even without us being able to support specifically that integration. We also add new integrations on a weekly basis. We're constantly putting out new integrations. Maybe weekly is a bit of a, I would say bi-weekly. Every 2 weeks there's a new integration coming out. And we've moved over to a totally new generic, sort of what we call no-code advanced connectors. So for us to be able to bring in that data is pretty streamlined and relatively quick, and we turn it around. So whether it's uploading through a Vulcan report, or putting in a request for us to develop that integration, in either of those ways, we support that.
So the next question, there are two more, but we'll only take one and address the rest after. This is a topic we can talk about for hours. And it's about determining risk score. I know in the Vulcan Cyber platform, we have a lot of parameters and mechanism in place to help security professionals determine risk scores, whether it's like CPSS, EPSS, business impact, etc. So maybe briefly give us all the interesting parameters that are taken in consideration.
Okay, so interesting is totally objective, totally, but on a completely subjective way to answer that question. Our risk score in Vulcan can basically take into account anything that we ingest. So if the connectors are providing us that information, we can basically put weights on any of the scoring. So that's just a broad answer to a very specific question. But more specifically, one of the things that makes our risk prioritization really top of the line, I believe, is because we know how to take in the business context, weigh the business context. We have a completely dedicated research team here at Vulcan that provides us our own, provides the system and feeds into the system threat intelligence. We connect also to outside threat intelligence, and that goes into the risk score. And so our risk score is really based on, again, anything that the user wants their risk score to be based on. But out of the box, we take care of really intelligence, and so the threat, and then we take into account the business context that the user assigns to their different assets. Putting 1 and 2 together, we provide a risk score. But again, a very simple answer to a very complex question. But really anything, like you said, Gal, can go into that score. And we build that custom, usually with the users in an onboarding process.